The origins of the old new philosophy, from my perspective, start with the riverfront in Minneapolis. As a student, I went down to the river with my friends and really caught on to what architecture could be through the physicality of all the structures and civil engineering there. Now that environment involves a lot of old buildings and old structures, and it made me think about those as being alive with potential as opposed to sort of something of the past.
Well, I think it's fundamental to who we are and what we've become. And it's different for different people now in the company. And I think there's a sort of a grounded continuity of our history.
It's this idea of garnering and seeing what something is before it becomes something else and seeing it differently, examining it both critically and playfully, that has opened us up to approaching adaptive reuse in an unusual way.
At the time in architecture school, no one was doing buildings that involved any kind of addition or renovation. It was all projecting new buildings. My first job at my Professor Stageberg's office when I got out of school was to work on a building that involved additions and renovations. That was just pure luck, but it gave me an opportunity to put into practice some of the feelings I had about old buildings.
But when I sit down on a scale like the Urban Outfitters project, the first thing I did was go to Philadelphia and spend a weekend by myself walking around the buildings. Just sitting in the quiet of these buildings, contemplating, how many people working there, friends were killed in the war, or how many thousands of families were affected by what was happening there. And so there's that sort of large social context that's important, sort of a cultural imperative to acknowledge that these things happened. And that felt really powerful to me in the beginning of the design process for Urban Outfitters. I didn't want to erase that history.
Often, buildings that exist in the world are characterized by experts, by preservationists, by owners, etc., as being something. Their story is solid, it's stable, and generally unexamined. What adaptive reuse allows is for us to actually identify and think about a place in many ways, first of all, to free it. And then to imagine, almost like an editor, imagine how alternative strategies, objects, moves can intervene and play with it alchemically. And you start to see this emergence of a whole host of possibilities grow out of it. It was a really good fit for the way we approached even new buildings.
When I later went on to have an opportunity to teach, I put to the students in the studio problems which involved an existing building and an existing ordinary building, one that was not designed by an architect. It may be a mill building or an industrial building, and asked them to design something that had more square footage than the original building contained, so it inherently involved an addition. And that proved to be extremely popular with the students, which gave me a level of confidence about the vitality and energy that was in this way of seeing architecture.
After I understand the building, then obviously you have to figure out what is the right relationship between what the client's asking for and what's possible.
There was no divining of a philosophical premise that we all adhered to, like theologians to their parishioners. There was no school of thought that was of the day that seemed to be the team that we were going to join in the sport of the aesthetics of the world. It was this process of examining critically and playing openly or exploring openly and then drawing out narratives and bringing clients along. That is the backbone, I think, of our work.
Old New philosophy of MS&R is not about turning back the clock, about going back in time and restoring a building to, its heyday or its glory days of it. Old New is about unlayering the layers of history, discovering the peculiar spaces that were created throughout history and highlighting them. And then inserting our new technology, inserting our new roles as individuals who live by an iPhone or other technology that's handheld, or new technologies of our envelope systems into old existing buildings. So the old new for me is the intersection between what was once and what is going to be in the future. Not one or the other, but really bringing out the layers or highlighting the best of both of those.